Hi there, this is Chris. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing great. Today we're going to take a look at the Fujifilm X-H2s. This camera was recently released and I got it from Fujifilm for only a couple of days for the weekend, so I didn't have much time. And little disclaimer from the get-go, I was not able to test the video features of this camera, only photography. So what I did is I went for a photo shoot with a model that came from Geneva. I'm going to put her Instagram down below if you want to go check it out. She's great. And I decided to test it with the 33mm f1.4 and the 50mm f1, so I can have a bit of a wider lens and I have something a bit more compressed for portrait and see how it performs. Throughout this video, I'm going to show you a ton of different samples of photos, some BTS, so you can see a little bit how it was. Now, one of the cool things about this camera is the burst. You can really take a lot of photos per second. If you go electronic mode, you can go all the way to 40 photos, and if you use the mechanical shutter, you can go all the way to 15 photos. In fact, this is how it sounds. That can be very useful for sports, for moments where, I don't know, for example, for kids, or if you don't want to miss the perfect shot and you don't have time because the subject is too quick, there's an improved subject detection and autofocus. I normally shoot in a very old school way. That is, I focus and then I reframe my photo, coming probably from a Leica world and from the beginnings of Fuji, when the focusing was not as good as it is now, especially the tracking of subjects. I learned to shoot that way. Now, I wanted to really test how it is to use the detection of subjects, and so I did it with this photo shoot in Lausanne that I'm showing you right here. The subjects that can be detected are animals, birds, cars, motorcycles, bicycles, airplanes, trains, you name it. There's a whole lot of things that you can track. In fact, one funny thing here is I told the model to go to a specific spot where I wanted to take a photo, and there was the Tour de France in Lausanne that was passing by, you know, with the bicycles. So the roads were closed, they were shut down, so we could cross the roads without a problem. And she went to that wall and I decided to take a photo of her walking. So I put the camera to my eye, I take the photo, and as I do that, there's a rectangle that shows around the model as she was walking. So it was following her and it tracked the fact that the model was moving in the picture, nothing else, and it thought that it was the subject I wanted to track automatically. And that is very cool because all of my photos in that sequence were in focus. So that is a big plus to have this function. In terms of EVF, it has a 0.8 magnification with 5.76 million dots. That is a lot. That is more than we've seen so far in other EVFs. For this category of camera, it is a lot. It really looks real life, looks like you're actually looking at the person, the subject, or when you're taking your photo, it doesn't look like it is a screen you're looking at. So that is a mega big, huge plus that they added into this model. The IBIS goes up to 7 stops of stabilization. That is amazing because when you take low light photos handheld, it gives you a little aid so that you don't have motion blur from moving yourself, and for shooting video, obviously it will stabilize your shots. It is a weather resistant body, as you can see on the photos here that I'm showing you in Lausanne. I didn't need that so far, but it is good to have if you're going to go out in dusty and or humid environments and you need a body with a lens that combined will seal the sensor and avoid these elements from coming into your camera. I was talking earlier about the sensor, and the sensor is 26.1 megapixels, so that didn't change from the XT cameras or the X Pro cameras. Now though, it is a stacked X-Trans CMOS 5 sensor, and the fact that it's stacked is what allows you to go that fast and do those bursts of photos that capture in 1 second up to 40 photos. That is, I think, very useful. I personally shot my photo shoot, I did it with 5 photos per second in mechanical shutter, which was already a lot because I had to choose around 55 photos out of 1,083 photos, which is way too much for me. And next time, I don't think I'm going to be using that function or that feature. Maximum maybe 3 photos per second, but that really is the maximum. This new Fuji camera supports HEIF image format. For those that don't know, it is basically a photo that looks like a JPEG, but it is 30% lighter in terms of size, and it is a 10-bit image, so you could get great shots out of the camera and use them as is. Obviously, I shoot RAW and usually JPEG in smaller size, so I can preview my photos directly on the computer easily, but yeah, I do shoot RAW, all of my photos. It's good to have this feature though for those that like to use photos straight out of the camera. In terms of grip, it has a very good grip. Like the X-H2s used to have, it was one of the first, if not the first Fuji camera that had that grip that you can really take in your hand. I don't have big hands, but it is perfect for me. Now, I don't know someone that has huge bare hands if you would be able to take it that well. But to me, worked great. I mean, you can see here in the videos of Lausanne that I didn't have any problem holding the camera, and it was very comfortable. On top of the camera right here, there's a display which looks like the X-H2s. It also looks a lot like the GFX series. In fact, it looks very, very close to the GFX 100s. They keep that that design, that look. The back of the screen here, which comes out, that is great for vlogging. It comes out, but it is basically similar or the same as the X-T4. That is a design that I like a lot. The texture on it looks really, really cool. And on top, we don't have the ISO and shutter speed dials anymore, the wheels. Those are gone. Now there is the PASM dial on top here with the C modes from 1 to 7. And there's the filter option as well as filming. When you go on film mode, then the menus change and they flip for filming like we saw on the X-T4 or the more recent Fujifilm cameras. Overall, this Fuji X-H2s is very small, very compact, very pleasant to use. I went to IKEA the other day with my kids. Listen to the shutter. See, it's very muffled, discreet, and nobody's gonna notice that you're taking photos. And we had a lot of fun. They went on the carpets, they jumped around and so on and so forth. And it was fun, it was great. The photos that came out are also awesome. Now, there are a few cons on this camera that I do wanna mention. Again, this is my personal opinion. Some of you will be like, why is that a con? It is my personal choice and the reason why I think it is a con, okay? The first thing is the slots. On the side here, there's a CF Express slot as well as an SD slot. My beef is the fact that CF Express cards are expensive. They're not cards that I use for anything else, and they're used for people that want to either do filming and use very high specs, or for specific tasks that require a lot of speed, a lot of storage, and so on and so forth. Now, as I said, I don't use those. I normally shoot weddings with two SD cards, 1 and 2, because one of them is the backup for the other one. I couldn't do this. If I wanted to use this for a wedding, I would have to buy a CF card just for that. Now, what if my CF card has a problem? What do I do in the middle of a wedding? I cannot back up anymore. I have to use an SD or have another CF card. But you start thinking the expenses that are required for such a camera. So that is one of the things I would change if in the future models it's possible to use either CF or SD. That's what I have on my Sony a7S III. And in fact, I have an SD card that is a V90 SD. For those that know, that is plenty of enough to shoot in 4K, 120 FPS in 10-bit. For example. Now, if you need more than that, then okay, you can buy another CF card and use that specifically for that requirement. But it is not something that I personally need. As I mentioned earlier, there's a PASM wheel, I don't know how you pronounce that, but up here, that is something I don't like. It's not Fuji-like, and I'm used to those good old traditional dials that we have on top. That's why I came to Fuji, and the fact that they're removing it, it's a bit annoying. Now, I heard many rumors and many vlogs and blogs and people saying, oh, has Fuji lost their soul? I don't think so. I think the reason why this and, for example, the XS10 came up with this type of setup is to get people from other brands, Sony, Canon, etc., to come to us and to use Fuji, because that way they're not lost and they understand what's happening and they can see how it works and they're more familiar and it's going to be more enjoyable to use. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be an X-T5, an X Pro 4, an X100VI, etc. I'm sure they're going to keep that line because that's the soul of Fuji, the analog looking. And for example, the other day I came back from a food photo shoot and I came to the studio to take some shots with the flash. Without turning on the camera, I could set my ISO to 200, 125th of a second, f5.6. I put on the transmitter and off you go, we could start shooting. So yeah, that's something I would not trade for this. Last but not least, the subject tracking is good, but I don't think it's as good yet as other brands, such as, for example, my Sony. When I use my Sony a7S III for filming, the little square stays on my eye full time. Like, it barely moves ever. If it moves, it's just to show my whole face for a fraction of a second here and there, but I don't miss any focus ever. This guy did miss a bunch of focusing. I have a lot of shots that were blurry, that were completely out of focus and totally missed it. It focused on the stone or focused on the tree. That was a bit weird. So it did happen. I would say 70% of the time it was fine, but a good 30% was not. And it was going a little bit out of focus. And yeah, I'm being very picky here, but since the main focus was, pun intended, on the subject tracking, I think that still leaves room for improvement. But that is, again, not something I use all the time. Those are the things that I would consider cons on this particular model. I would suggest this model as a conclusion to anyone that wants a camera that's similar to other brands, but that still has those Fuji film simulations, Fuji menus, Fuji, even the feel, the aperture, still have the aperture ring because you can put all your beloved Fuji lenses like I did. And yeah, I think it is a great camera for the price. It comes very close to other bigger brands. In my next video, I will be testing this guy for video. Hopefully I'm gonna have it for a few more days than a weekend because that's gonna be easier for me to test it. All right, so I see you in my next video. Take care, keep shooting, and ciao.